Hello, Sparkly Beans. It's been a while since we had a deep dive deck review, and we're going to be looking today at the Meraki Tarot. So I hope you'll dig in with me if you're interested in this deck and want to know my perspective from having worked with it. If you're new here, hi, my name's Avery, and I work with justice-aligned, neurodivergent, and nerdy humans to cultivate ease and self-trust for growing into our emerging future. So the Meraki Tarot is one that I actually backed on Kickstarter, and it's obviously not a new deck. If you haven't seen my deck reviews before, I mostly, with the exception of sometimes doing a little quick first look, I prefer to do a deep dive. I prefer to do decks that I've worked with before. And spoiler alert, this is actually one that's leaving my collection. I've sold it to a friend. It's a deck that maybe folks who collect decks have had this experience where you get really excited about a deck and you're into the art, and then you find yourself just not using it. This happened to me with this one when the second edition came out. I got the email and I looked at the Kickstarter, and I remember looking through it and thinking, do I want the second? Is the second edition better than the first? And I was comparing the editions, and I think that there are definitely changes. And so just so you know, I will be showing the first edition. It's not available, but I believe the second still is. I hope that's right. So this is the first edition, but I believe that they're pretty similar, though there have been some changes, I'm pretty sure, in the art itself, and maybe some full cards have changed. But I was looking, and it was funny because I was like, wait a minute, what did I like about the first one? And I went back to the deck, and I was like, man, I haven't really used this. And then I kind of went through it more in depth and just realized that it wasn't quite speaking to me. So I think sometimes it's one of those things where like the images can be really, really beautiful and you can like love the images, but it's just not the deck for you. So, caveat, this is going to be a deck that didn't work for me, but I wanted to share some of the things that I do like about it, who I might recommend it for, and what it is that didn't work for me, so you can get an honest opinion of the deck. So I'll briefly talk about the quality of the deck, but again, since this is a different edition than what's available, your mileage may vary. But this first edition, it comes with this guidebook. It is full color, and it has pictures of the cards, so I know a lot of folks like that. Really nice, well-produced paperback guidebook. It's a two-part box, and again, real nice, real pretty. It's very well produced deck. The cards themselves are very, I don't know card finish names, but they're that really buttery, smooth, nice, like good cardstock, and then these are the card backs. So these are not things I tend to focus on, but I know people do, so quickly we'll just note those. But let's get into it a little bit. So I'm gonna start by talking a little bit about what's in the guidebook and what we learn about the deck and the creator of the deck. So there's a little bit about it, and the creator, Carrie Bouchette, originally worked with Thoth, interestingly enough, but then turned to doing a Smith Rider-Waite inspired deck. The name Meraki says Meraki, to do something with soul, creativity, and love, to leave the essence of yourself and your passion in your work. There are a few layouts here, a few spreads. Carrie notes that they typically use freeform layouts. They don't use spreads, and so there's a little bit about how they do that. And then the spreads are fairly basic, I think, just because that's not their game, although they do have a kind of custom Meraki spread in there. Spread for the end of the week, 3-card spreads, and 2-card spread. So that's just sort of quick in there. And then there's a little bit on their take on the lines of the majors at the beginning of the section on the majors, and then I believe at the beginning of the section on the suits. Yes, there's a little bit about the numbers and a little bit about the elements. I guess I'll say that one of the things that I wasn't for me about this deck, but could be for others, I found that through reading the guidebook, that Bouchette, right? Yeah, Bouchette's take on the tarot is, I would say, pretty. It feels to me I want to be careful not to like sound judgy, right? Like it feels to me very sort of traditional Smith Rider-Waite, and then I would say there's definitely a degree of like this, not quite love and light. I think that there are definitely like, there's a lot of reference in this deck to in this book rather, to, you know, the blended sides of cards, but I noticed that the guidebook tends to kind of push towards, and here's how you get to the light, and like every card is about you know, manifestation and using your power and, you know, light basically. And I think that works for a lot of people. And so if that's your, you know, if your orientation, if you're very into like the magic of manifesting and the magic of sort of being aware of challenges but like always pushing forward, then this may really resonate with you. Because I'm someone who tends to be balanced in a different way, and who tends to kind of, I'm very critical of this idea of like always pushing forward because it feels kind of capitalist and linear to me. It didn't resonate with me. So I think, in all fairness, I have to say that. However, it's definitely not the like most love and lighty, you know, kind of interpretation I've seen. It does pull in some of the challenging sides of things, but I think the overall orientation to me feels like it's going in that direction. The structure of the guidebook, so like I said, you do get a nice little picture in full color of the card so that you can, you don't have to have the card out as you're reading through it. I really appreciate that Bouchette talks both about the meaning of the card and the specific figures that you see in the card. As we'll get to it, a lot of these have animals and plants, and so there is some description. Some of them I think have more connection to the like meaning of why it's that animal or plant than the other. For some of it, it just kind of feels like that's the character that they've chosen to portray. So you know, kind of mixed there, but there is mention of the art in each card, which I like. I don't like it when artists don't talk about their choices, so that's really nice. You'd get light and dark keywords for each card, and then for the majors, there are crystal associations. So if you work with crystals, there are crystal associations for each of the majors, not for the minors. And then, I don't know if there's anything else to say really about the structure of the guidebook. So yeah, that's the basic idea, the basic setup. There are a lot of extras with this deck, and I think there are slight differences with the second edition, but I'll show you what comes with the first edition. So it includes these reference cards. So again, I think this is a good beginner deck. Like, I think a lot of my critique comes from like having this like deep working with the tarot and having basically particular opinions about particular cards where I look at the interpretation, I'm like, oh, I wish it was more this, or I wish it was more that. But I think if you're not exposed to the tarot and you want, you know, an introduction, you're looking for something that's uplifting, right? This could be a good deck for you. And so it's nice if you do have it as a beginner deck, you have all these reference cards. So these are the astrological signs. They include the ruler, the dates for the sun sign, and just a single keyword like Libra, I balance, Virgo, I analyze, and then a few little keywords per sign. You get the crystal associations here all on one card, which is nice. So the card, the gem, and then a few keywords. And then we also have astrology and element associations. Let me see, are these? Yes, these are it looks like, glancing, I haven't looked at every single one, but just glancing through them, it looks like they are the Golden Dawn associations. Solar system associations. So these are just the planets, but with a little keyword of what the planets mean. So if you're learning a little bit about astrology, that's kind of cool. Or if you're learning a little bit about crystals, oh yeah, and there's two crystal cards to cover all the majors. So those are these little extra reference cards. You also get, in terms of reference, or extra cards rather, there are these two that can be used as clarifiers or can be sorted into the deck: obscurity and clarity. So if you want a little kind of binary, yes, no, clarity, obscurity is what you get there. And then there is a 22nd major, and that is called the Meraki. And I will read you what the Meraki is briefly in case you're curious. So that final major card in this deck that comes after the universe, which is the world. The Meraki is the additional 22nd card in the major arcana and signifies doing something with soul, creativity, and love. To leave the essence of yourself and your passion in your work. Meraki embodies that feeling and the essence of finding the freedom to be the best version of yourself. So you can kind of see that in there, that kind of like, it's very like creativity oriented deck, passion oriented deck, and then that like best version of yourself. So there is that kind of like positivity kind of message. The white dove symbolizing love, peace, and the messenger of light and shadow is larger than life, drifting across the sunlit and vibrant sky, free from the worry and restraints that may hold us back. The sun beams down upon the many layers of rich, colorful land and brings that feeling of warmth and the healing vibration of song through our mind, body, and spirit. As the Meraki comes to you in a reading, it is a sign that you're ready to spread your wings, let your song travel far and wide, and dive into your true passions, hopes, and dreams. Know that when you lead with your truth, your intuition, and your unique magic will lead you to a life of dreams come true. And it's associated with rose quartz. So I think that card gives you a sense of the orientation of the deck. You know, I think it is really like designed for, to be good for artists, to be good for, you know, folks who are doing projects and who are trying to put themselves out in the world. People who are doing even like social media, I think could find, you know, messages in this deck that are helpful. And there is that like overall kind of positive orientation. So to show you, I'll just like flip through some of the sort of just random cards to show you some of the art. Again, some of this may have changed. So you can see that it's generally a nature deck, but with a lot of incorporation of crystals, incorporation of color. It's, you know, generally, it's a lot of pastel, but you have, you know, here's like Justice. Not all the cards are a pastel palette. But you get a lot of elemental feeling. You also get a lot of this, like line work in the art style combined with the more sort of color block. I don't know art terms, so, but like some more sigil-y type stuff mixed in. So if you like that style, I found actually that these cards, to me, you know, as much as the guidebook and I were not totally aligned, I find that like if this art style works for you, and for me it just wasn't quite the style I needed, I think you could totally do this deck without the guidebook, and there are some good associations between cards. So I pulled out some of those. For example, you know, I always dig using a bee, the Eight of Pentacles. I think that's a really good association, kind of like skill and work over time, and actually leave that one aside. Like this is an interesting one. Like the guidebook for the Two of Swords was a lot about just like the equality of choices, and like the difficulty where it's like an equal amount of that island is above and below. So it's kind of like wrestling with a choice where there's not necessarily a right answer. But I also just, there's something I liked about the way I think of the Two of Swords, and this need to like go deep and reflect and kind of like take a step back and drop in. That imagery worked, even though that wasn't what the guidebook talked about. I again love a nest for the Three of Pentacles. I think the 3 and the 8 have a similar energy, and I like those kind of like animal associations. I thought this was cool. There's a note in the guidebook about the Three of Cups, that the whale, like having the whale joining the birds, that it was kind of like a reminder that family is kind of what you make it to be. And of course, you know, I love chosen family. I'm a relationship anarchist, so I'm always going to be down for that. This is just a good depiction of the Eight of Swords, you know, feeling trapped, but then the ladybug has wings, and we're always going to appreciate a Luna moth for death. Some of the, just a few, since I kind of was mean to the guidebook, I will mention a few that I did like. So again, I found the overall orientation didn't work for me, but there were some little snippets of wisdom that I liked in the guidebook. For example, the Page of Pentacles talks a lot about just how present these bunnies are, and like that kind of just like you're not paying attention to anything else, you're just immersed in your environment, you're curious, you're present to what's here. I think that is very much like what the Page of Pentacles is for me. You know, some that had me like reflect a little beyond my usual interpretations, or just like add something additional. The Page of Wands, so actually I have the guidebook here, I'm gonna pull it up. Wands. So the Page of Wands, one of the things I liked, because I often think of the Page of Wands as like, it can be described as this like explorer energy and a very like dilettante, kind of jack all trades, like jumping around kind of energy. And then Lindsay Mack, one of my tarot teachers, talks about the importance of the groundedness of it, and that the pages are earth. So if it's earth of fire, like that's not just everywhere, it's not scattered, it's like grounded. But I never quite could get, like, I always had a little trouble with that idea of like, what does it mean? Like grounded exploration in this way, like it didn't always, I couldn't feel it. And this book really helped with that, because it says, one of the things it says, talking about embracing the journey and the excitement and the possibilities. And then it says, as you forge ahead, pay attention to your instincts. There is no pressure, and every step forward and backward is all part of embracing the creative spark and journey. And then so the one bird carries the gift of a wand as a reminder that instinct, motivation, and enthusiasm will guide your free spirit as you embark on your exploration. Each new day is full of new possibilities and passionate ways to ignite the flame. So I thought for ADHD folks, this was a really good way of looking at the Page of Wands, because it's like, it's this freedom of the flight, but then with the wand that's kind of like representing the direction, but it's not the same direction every day. And I've talked on this channel, if I think of it, I'll leave a card, but I've talked about like embracing sort of inconsistent consistency, and there's been a lot coming up in this Chariot year, which another video I'll try to do a card for that I talked about. In this Chariot year, there's been a lot of like emphasis, I think, on pacing and direction and movement. And I love that idea of like, it's being grounded in fire is not the same as being grounded in earth. So like earth of fire is kind of more, it's a grounding in what feels motivating and passionate and enthusiastic on the day, and tuning into that instinct and like, where do I feel that I'm going, and not judging that, but also it's not a full scattered like just kind of random default mode. It's like learning to tune in, and when you have ADHD, I think it can be really powerful to like, if you treat the sort of scatteredness as bad, then a lot of times it'll kind of run the show. If you move from it being kind of this default you're trying to get out of, and move into like, what is my body telling me? What is my emotion telling me? What is my motivation telling me about where I want to go? Then you can kind of flow with that wandery path in a really beautiful way. So I thought that was a cool representation of that. Another one that I think might speak to my neurodivergent audience is the Page of Swords. It's kind of funny. I liked the pages and the knights in this book. I didn't like the kings and the queens as much. I didn't find they differentiated as much as I would like them to, but I did really like the knights and the pages. And a lot of times I don't like court card interpretations, so that's cool. So this is the Page of Swords in this one. As a passionate communicator, he brings many ideas and messages on his travels. This page gives us a reminder that though there is much to see and share, we should be mindful of our delivery to others. It can become too much for them to process. Remember that those on your path also have something to teach you, which can further expand your journey in life. So I just thought that was a cool way of thinking of the Page of Swords. That resonated with me more than some interpretations, because I think we can often feel excited by ideas. You know, I'm ADHD, I have autism, ADHD, and I very much can embody this kind of like, I'm so excited about ideas, much more than people a lot of times, that I'm like, let me tell you everything I learned. And it might feel like this. It might feel like I'm just flinging it out over the landscape, and it's like, who is it gonna hit? And so it's very much been something, even with like working with neurodivergent folks in my business, that I've been learning over the past few years, is like, what does it mean, you know, when you are like, you have to be really mindful when working with neurodivergent folks of like cultivating your business and cultivating your communication to meet others' neurotypes, and like, how do our neurotypes intersect, and like, what does mindful listening to someone else's needs mean, and then what does it mean to like communicate in a way that people can absorb and can hear. And sometimes for me, it's like turning towards neurodivergent folks is often part of this, is like that some of the stuff I have to share, just neurotypical people don't care, and that's okay, like, they don't have to. But both of these two cards actually also made me think of things I've learned through human design. Like this one has a lot of the energy, I think, of like a projector who maybe doesn't have the invitation, that like the message is waiting for the invitation, because a lot of times you can feel really like resentful, and bitterness is the not self theme of the projector. You can feel that bitterness when you're trying to share guidance that you're really excited about and nobody cares. I feel that. And then with the Page of Wands, I feel a lot of the generator energy of like waiting to respond, and not just waiting to respond, but the generator is always responding, but it's like going through response specifically is that wand, I think, is that like tuning into what you're responding to. Then the last card I just specifically wanted to share that I found really like interesting in terms of interpretations is the Nine of Pentacles. So it's not that different, but I thought it was a good take on it. And by the way, these are all parts. I'm not reading the entire page. But this one, the Nine of Pentacles invites you to reflect on what makes your life fulfilling and comfortable. All the work you have put into cultivating where you are now is magical and deserves to be rewarded by recognizing this within your heart. Remember that the rewards you gain from your work must balance with the energy you put in. This is a good time to weigh these things out and make sure you're staying true to your achievements. I really like that, because I think the Nine of Pentacles, it often is like, it's success, it's achievement. Sometimes I appreciate when it's clear that it's like your personal definition of success, and that the nine has, like, the nines all have a kind of a internal vibe to them and a personal vibe to them. And so it can be a good card for asking yourself, like, what is success to you? But I really like that layer of reflecting on how your energy you put in balances with what you received, because it's not always an energy of just luxury and abundance, right? It might be an energy sometimes. It would be interesting to receive this card, I think, for an experience where you're like, you know, I have XYZ, but like it didn't really match what I put in to get to the nine. And so thinking of like the journey to the nine and then how it represents the result, comparing result to journey, is like a really interesting take on that card. So that's just a look at the Meraki Tarot. Again, I think it might be for you if you are a creative person who is drawn to some of these messages that are around, you know, manifestation, around, you know, if you're really needing an uplifting deck, a deck that's kind of like empowering and just going to tend to tell you to go for it. You know, if that's what you're needing. So sometimes it's like, I don't want to bask in the like darkness. That's not where I am. That's great. If you're a beginner and you're looking for kind of traditional interpretations to get to know the tarot, I think this is not a bad deck, especially if that card imagery speaks to you. And those reference cards are really handy. I think if you're somebody who, you know, has a more like kind of critical interpretation of cards at this point in your practice, and if you tend to kind of shy away from anything that feels a little bit love and light, then this might not be the deck for you. But that's my sort of take on the Meraki Tarot, first edition, but again, I believe the second is available. And that's awesome. So we'll see you in the next video. And if there's decks you've seen me have around on this channel and you want me to prioritize reviewing, you're welcome to let me know in the comments down below. And we'll see you in the next video.